ayahuasca makes you understand that everything is breathing, that everything has veins.
Just be here now. Just be here now.
Welcome to the Set and Setting podcast with Madison Margolin. As a journalist, Madison has spent years exploring the intersection of psychedelics, cannabis, and culture. This podcast brings together thought leaders from today's psychedelic renaissance to talk about the role of psychedelics in our inner and outer lives. You can support this podcast and find additional resources at BeHereNowNetwork.com/Madison.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Set and Setting podcast. Our guest today is Jim Belushi. Performer Jim Belushi is the founder of Belushi's Farm Cannabis, where his sprawling and spiritual 93 acres along the Rogue River plays home to a range of offerings, from Chasing Magic, Jim's Secret Stash, to the Blues Brothers, to Captain Jack's Golzer Afghanica, a rare strain from the Hindu Kush region that became known in the 70s as the, quote, smell of SNL, and now Growing Belushi, a series on discovery. Growing Belushi takes Discovery's audiences inside Jim's world and shows the incredible effort it takes to build a legal cannabis operation. With 42 years in the public eye and Jim's professional career further inspired by the beauty and healing power of cannabis, Jim is actively engaged in several projects benefiting the region around Belushi's farm and beyond, including serving on the board of the Last Prisoner Project, a coalition of cannabis industry leaders, executives, and artists dedicated to bringing restorative justice to the cannabis industry. Jim, I'm really excited to have you here. Thank you.
Well, thank you. What a wonderful introduction. I was quite enjoying it. I never think about all those things.
Well, thank you for doing them all. It's, and what I want to ask you is, how did you sort of get to this point in your career, right? Like, from performance to cannabis, what's kind of tying it all together?
Well, I haven't really talked about this, but I can talk about it with you. My journey began with a journey. I went to the jungles of Peru, outside of Iquitos, and did some very intense work with ayahuasca, about 12 now ceremonies. And that was in 2014. And I really think there was a trajectory change in my life. And I think plant medicine leads you to more plant medicine. And I think I was open up quite a bit in all kinds of aspects of my life. But one of them was opening up to more risk and more adventure. And I made a big risk really against my wife's wishes to buy this little piece of property on the Rogue River in southern Oregon, outside of Medford. It's in Eagle Point. A friend of mine had a place about 6 miles down the river, and I used to come with the family twice a year. And I just fell in love. I went into the river one time naked, and the river spirit just grabbed me. I came out, and I was like, I should start looking for a place. And I found this beautiful spot that I know that the Native Americans lived at, right between Table Rock, which is one of the most spiritual plateaus here in Southern Oregon, where a lot of the Native Americans did a lot of their ceremonies, and Mount Pitt. And I'm right between them, and right in the middle between two oak trees, I built a sweat lodge. I just built a sweat lodge. And then the property behind me came up with an 80-acre farm. And I had 13 acres on the river here. And the woman there was a very wonderful woman, Becca. She passed and wanted me to have the property. So I bought the property, and I didn't know what to grow. Cattle, too expensive. I don't know about corn. And so cannabis became legal, and I went, new agriculture. So I got Captain Jack, Danny Aykroyd's friend, who was the smell of SNL, to bring his genetic here. And we started a little medical grow, and it's been just expanding ever since. Now I have, 4 greenhouses with 16 turns, some really proprietary genetics. And I don't know, being alongside this plant, this feminized plant, has been leading me to where I believe I'm supposed to be. So I really believe the journey started in Peru, and, Papatua and Mother Aya and whatever kind of led me to where I am today. And the TV show I'm doing is called Growing Belushi. And it's kind of a turn on the term, because it really is, commercially it's about me growing cannabis. But the context of the show is really about me growing as a person alongside this oracle of cannabis.
Wow.
So here I am on a farm, growing cannabis, and I started it as a business. It really is a hobby. And I went to many dispensaries. And one day I met a gentleman in the parking lot because I made personal appearances and that kind of thing. And it was a veteran. And blue eyes, little beard, kind of longish hair, thin. And his eyes caught me in the line. I just turned to him. I said, "You all right?" And he said, "I am a veteran. I was a medic in Iraq, and I saw things that happened to the human body that nobody should ever witness, ever. And the Veterans Administration says I have triple PTSD." He goes, "I don't know what that means, but they gave me a bottle of Oxycontin this big. And I couldn't talk to my wife. I couldn't talk to my kids, and I can't sleep. And I got off that, and I went to cannabis. And your Black Diamond OG is the only strain that allows me to actually converse with my family and sleep." And his eyes welled up, and he hugged me. And I was like, "Oh, man, I didn't make this stuff." He goes, "No, but you're a steward." And when we left that dispensary, Chris and I, it was a paradigm shift in what I'm doing with cannabis. And every dispensary we go, or every place I go where people know about me and cannabis, I hear incredible stories of healing. So my mission from God is to, like as an actor, make people feel good. And that paradigm shift has just taken me to another scale. And since then, I've been involved with cannabis. I've been involved with psychedelics. And I just think this is the path.
Wow. So what originally led you to ayahuasca? Because that seems to have been your launch pin for kind of getting into the cannabis.
Well, it's funny. I had a group of men, 6 of us, that we did we were part of a men's organization, and we would meet every week and kind of try to help each other with our wounds and just figuring out what it was to be a man in this culture. And anyway, there was one guy, Steve, who was just, I don't want to say the word, but he was very soft. His wife pushed him around a lot. And he had 2 daughters that were pushing him around a lot. And we teased him a lot. And he was, kind of nerd-like in a way, But he was a very spiritual guy. And I loved him deeply. Anyway, we hadn't seen each other for years, and we had kind of a reunion. And we all sat around and drank a bunch of wine and got pretty loaded. And this guy, Steve, and I'm like the biggest guy in the group, you know, I'm boisterous, kind of strong presence. He ripped me an asshole. He was making fun of me for 20 minutes, had the other guys laughing their asses off. I'm sitting there like stunned. I had no comebacks. I mean, he roasted me, made fun of me in front of my buddies. I had never been melted so fast, right? He was different. And after our gathering, I went to him and I said, "What the hell happened to you, man? What have you been doing?" And he goes, "Well, you know, I met this shaman down in Peru, and I did these ayahuasca ceremonies, and I went, how do I get in on that?" And the shaman happened to be coming to Los Angeles, and I met with a shaman, and I went, "Let's go." And I went down to Peru and sat on the floor of the jungle, and you know, he thrashed me. You know, I was given a good thrashing. Apparently, I needed it. And that's what it was. It was seeing my buddy Steve have a complete change. And it was like, come on, man. No therapist is doing this to you. What's going on? And so that's how I kind of was introduced to it.
Wow. And so what was the shift that happened during the ayahuasca experience that like made you, you know, motivated you to get more involved in cannabis? Like, you know.
Oh, I don't think it was a conscious thing.
Yeah.
It wasn't like during the ceremony I had this vision or any of that. I mean, it was, you know, when you do those kind of ceremonies, you get some real light bulb moments within the ceremony, of course, but it just continues. It doesn't stop for, you know, 6-8 months. You just continue to see things differently and see things about yourself differently and changing your perceptions about things. And, you know, I mean, I have a relationship now with everything around me. I mean, that ayahuasca makes you understand that everything is breathing, that everything has veins, these trees, the plants. And I have a real nice relationship with my plants. And I feel them. I mean, I'm open to it. I'm open to these trees. These trees right behind you, these girls right here, there's 5 of them. I don't know if you can see them.
I can see some of them.
Yeah. These girls, when I first came here, I sat down there in the river. There was no house here. I just bought the property and it was night. And I was sitting in a little chair that I pulled out there. And I got this really freaky feeling. I got kind of nervous. And I looked up at these trees and I looked away. And then I turned and looked at the trees. And I said, "Look, I just bought the property. I'm not here to hurt you. I want to share this land with you. I won't hurt you. I'll trim you, but I won't cut you. And we can share this land together. I don't own you." And all of a sudden, I got all this great energy coming at me. It was like they started chatting, you know, like, "Oh, my God, it's so nice to have you here. Oh, the river, you know, sometimes it flows really high. Sometimes it flows really low. But, you know, over here to the left." Now, that is, you know, I mean, they weren't literally saying that, but that's what I felt. They were like, all of a sudden. So I literally say hi to these girls every day when I walk by. I would never be open to that kind of communication before Aya.
Right.
And so I keep developing relationships with the cannabis and the plant life deeper and deeper. And it's grounded me more, and it's made me a better human being, kinder, gentler, more compassionate, more empathetic.
What was your relationship with psychedelics before ayahuasca?
Well, in high school, I used to, we used to do LSD. I mean, one summer we'd do it 2 days in a row, take a day off in order to get off on the third day. I mean, really kind of did a lot that summer. Went to a couple rock festivals, but I woke up from that experience of doors of perception. Huxley was like, wow, everything around me just changed. Mm-hmm. The way I looked at the world, the way I looked at acting. I think it helped me become a better actor, more open. And maybe about for that summer and maybe a couple more times. And then I didn't do anything till probably the ayahuasca.
Mm. And, one thing that, you're describing sort of this relationship to like the natural world and plant life and whatever. And so many times when people do a psychedelic, they have these kind of like mystical, spiritual feelings of connection or, these experiences. So like, did it shift your relationship to spirituality? It seems like it shifted your relationship a little bit to nature, but like how, did you have like an experience of, I don't know, like the cosmic or like the divine that evolved due to your experience with ayahuasca, or I guess even with acid at some point?
Look, I'm an actor. I'm a creative person. I'm a writer. I'm a director. I'm a musician. And music is so close to God. I grew up in a very religious town. There were evangelists that lived across the street that were probably the nicest people I've ever met in my life. And they used to take me to these little church meetings, And so I was taught the Bible, through that. But I wasn't really an evangelist. I was just doing it because they gave you candy at the end. I don't know. I've always felt I was on a spiritual path. I've always, always been learning. I'm always curious about what's in front of me. And, I've always been open. Mm-hmm. Gaia just ripped it open.
Right.
And now, I mean, when I do my sweat lodge, I do a little, shaman light, Then we bring in all the spirits. We bring in the river spirit. This river spirit is like, whoa, really very powerful on this property. And this place is called Eagle Point. Interestingly enough, I came out of the sweat lodge and we had called the eagle spirit into the sweat lodge, right? And in the vision, this eagle spirit landed on my friend's shoulder and I saw him pecking at his neck. And then all of a sudden, he started to flap his wings and pull out his whole nervous system. And he flew and he dropped it into the river in the vision, right?
Wow.
And I said, hey, come back. Am I going to do that to me? And I walked out of the sweat lodge and the man who was, caring for the flame is from here. I look up and there's the big, beautiful eagle that flew over. And I went, oh my God, there's an eagle. We were just with the eagle in there. And he goes, Jim, there is a reason this town is called Eagle Point. There's a lot of eagles in the area. And I went, oh, okay. All right. But, the eagle spirit is a wonderful battling spirit that's very prevalent in my sweat lodge. And the river spirit is really a cleanser here. And then we get the mountains, and it's just a beautiful experience, always.
And the sweat lodge, like, can you describe that experience? Like, what medicine are you using? Or do you have?
I haven't used any medicine in the sweat lodge.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of the leader in it. So I just want to be clear-headed. Maybe I've thought about it because maybe it'll take me to another place, but my kids came in there. I've had friends who've never done sweat lodges before. So I kind of introduce them to the spirituality of it. And we read some Native American prayers and we do some rituals. Mm-hmm. And I have to surround the room in love, protect the room. I have to hold the room. I open up by saying this room is surrounded in love. Anything that comes in or leaves with love or comes in with love. And I've had some intrusions that I've picked up on that I've literally turned and looked at and went, no, leave with love, out. And it went. So I haven't really done medicine within that medicine.
Mm-hmm. I see. Well, I'm curious. A lot of the times on this podcast, I'll kind of ask people like what their regular practices are. Like, what are your grounding practices, your spiritual practices? Like, what do you do on a daily level to integrate the experiences that you had, in these kind of like heightened states? And so it sounds like sweat lodge could be part of it, or even, having this whole cannabis operation is kind of this integrated expression of things. But like, what is your sort of like day in the life that is keeping you?
I don't know. Like,
you don't know.
I don't know. I don't really have an active routine, which now talking about is thinking about maybe I should. I do meditate at night, but it's mainly to help me go to sleep. I end up falling asleep during it. I'll do a little chocolate once in a while for medicine. Take edge off anxiety. I do some kind of exercise, whether it's walking or boxing or I don't know what I really do. I just kind of do what's in front of me.
Well,
like you, I'm doing this. I'm just doing it. I don't know what I'm going to say, what you're going to say. I'm just being here.
I'm just riffing,
Yeah, just riffing. That's all I do.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's it, though, is like, what is Be Here Now? We're on the Be Here Now network. So much of this is inspired by, Ram Dass's legacy. But, like, I don't think, like, Be Here Now has to be sitting on a pillow necessarily and, like, just, like, meditating. I think it's doing anything you do in life with complete presence, like you're here now doing this interview, and then in the next minute you'll be doing something else, but like bring your full self to that experience.
Well, yes. And I'm fortunate and unfortunate in the same move. And that is, I grew up in survival mode. So I was always in an avoya, as they call it, necessity. Avoya means necessity. You do what is necessary. And when you're doing what is necessary, you are present because you are doing what is necessary in that moment. And fortunately, that is really helpful when you're doing acting. And I particularly am an improvisational actor. So I'll stand on stage, we'll take a suggestion from somebody in the audience, and we will create a scene in front of you. And that, talk about being here and now, that you can't be more present than making up shit right there. And that's my training as an actor. So, I only get in trouble when I think about things more than 2 weeks in advance, So I kind of live my life doing what's in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not always a good thing, because you're reacting in the moment too, emotionally, or whatever your science is that day. If you're not haven't eaten, or you're tired, or you're sick, or you're present and you react. And a lot of other people, it's hard for them. They want you to be nice. They want non-confrontational. They want nice. They want easy. And I'm not the easiest guy to be around. I'm very present, very in the moment. And I get frustrated when other people aren't. Mm. It's like I feel they're wasting my time. I don't want to really play this chit-chat game with you. It's like there's other important things to do, I feel. So it does add to some conflict from time to time.
I mean, what do you do when you're in a situation and you feel like not all parties are being fully present? Like, how do you deal with that in yourself then?
Well, I do a lot of talking, my kind of new talk is like, let them be who they are. That's who they are. That's their journey. Let them go. They might not be in the place where I am. Don't judge them for it. Accept them for it. Allow them to be. If you're getting frustrated, step out of the room. So I step out of the room a lot. Yeah. Excuse me. I have to go to the bathroom. Is a good one. Yeah. I always felt that our lives have been structured in 50-minute cycles. Classes in school were 50 minutes with a 10-minute break. Therapy is 50 minutes. Yoga class is 50 minutes. Everything is 50 minutes. So our bodies and minds are kind of trained to hold our attention for 50 minutes. And then you need a goddamn break.
Right.
So in life, like you and I, we'll talk for 50 minutes. So anything over 50 minutes, I start going, I have to go to the bathroom. I need my break between classes.
I mean, I think that sets a pretty healthy expectation, because, any creative process really, I'll sit down to write an article and I'm going to block out 3 hours or 4 hours. And I'll be like, who am I kidding that in that time period, I'm not going to get distracted and that could derail the entire 4 hours if I get distracted within the first 45 minutes. But if you what you're saying, and I'm going to actually try to implement these 50-minute increments now that you mention it, is it really a way to kind of give yourself permission to be here now, because it's like easier to do that when it's less of like a daunting thing, when you're.
Well, I can be here now easily with you because you're on an experienced plane that I've been on. So it's lovely. I mean, it's lovely to converse with you. Or Zoe, or, people that are, have you been experienced, that are experienced. But there's a lot of people out there that aren't, including my, family.
Right.
And it's like, oh.
Well, that's like that Ram Dass quote, if you think you're enlightened, go spend a week with your family.
Yeah, right. Right. And no, I mean, it does. It just shatters all the work that you've been doing with this kind of empathy and like, I let them be, don't judge. Because I find when I judge, that's the start of me getting in trouble with people, with relationships. I start judging, and then I'm going, what, you self-righteous asshole, stop it. And I have to, it's a lot of work.
Well, I feel like judging takes you out of the moment. And I'm thinking back to when you were talking about improv, for instance, is like, if you're judging yourself or you're judging the other person on the spot, like that's going to derail the flow of like what you're doing, what's in front of you, what's not.
Well, that's true. But as you become an experienced improviser, you're able to do 5 things at once. You're able to be in the moment, which is very important. But in that moment, you're able to write, self-direct, be open to what they're saying. Coming off of that, you're structuring a scene. You're making sure you don't start arguments in a scene because nobody wants to watch anybody argue. Your left shoulder, left eye, left ear is listening to the audience breathing, because laughter is controlled by your breath. And when you get a big laugh, they're letting out air and they're sucking in air, and you have to allow that air to come in. And at a certain point, you hit them with another line to pop it again. You've got an ear open to the piano player who's setting tones for you. So there are a lot of things going on in that moment of being here and now. It's not just I'm in your eyes, But that's being in the now. You're present with everything around you. You just are building up this skill, just thickening the skill of the presence. And the problem is, in real life, I still have that capacity. So I let too much in. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I kind of want to switch gears a little bit, actually, and talk to you about, in sort of like cultivating presence, like kind of how we move through the world and kind of contribute back to the world by being more aware of like what, you mentioned like what is necessary, right? So like what is necessary.
Navoya,
yes. And so I love that concept, by the way. You
want to hear the whole concept, where it comes from?
No, yeah, let's go for it.
So my cousin Gus, my dad was an immigrant, and his uncle, everybody, they came to the United States. They were in the restaurant business. They started, being dishwashers, and they owned restaurants and diners. And the cheeseburger sketch on Saturday Night Live was based on my dad and my Uncle Paul's Olympia lunch. So anyway, my cousin Chris, they had a place called the Sunnyside Grill, and his father, at 11:30, they're in downtown Chicago. At 11:30, the father takes off his apron and says, "I got to go." And my cousin goes, "What do you mean you got to go? Lunch is coming up. I can't serve lunch by myself." He goes, I got to go. Don't worry, Navoya is going to show up. And my cousin's thinking he's some Albanian guy named Navoya, right? So now it's 12 o'clock. Navoya's not here. 12:30, the orders are coming in. Gus is like getting so mad at his dad and mad at this guy Navoya. This bum didn't show up. Now it's 1 o'clock, and he is serving and putting up plates. 1:30, 2 o'clock, 2:30, lunch is over. 3 o'clock, the father comes. He screams at the father, "You left me here alone. Where's this Navoya? Who is this idiot that didn't show up?" And he goes, "Did you get through lunch?" "Yeah." "Did you serve all the food?" "Yeah." He goes, "Well, the Navoya showed up." Necessity showed up. You do what is necessary. So I always love that story, and I always love that the spirit of Navoya.
Wow.
Necessity. Yeah.
So how do you apply that to your life, kind of like to your work, to cannabis, to acting? And then I'll ask my next question based on that. Or what would you say is necessary? Like for you, what are the necessities then?
Well, the first necessity here on the farm is keeping it successful enough to pay these employees, because they are in Navoya all the time. They have a family to feed. They have a house to pay for. So I have to make sure their Navoya's necessity is taken care of in a financial way. So that's really the number one thing on the farm. It's making sure that the family is cared for. Mm-hmm. So it's necessary to make sure we're growing very well, growing quality, and delivering an honorable and distinguished product that we're all proud of.
Cool. So, relating Navoya on an individual level, and you just kind of did it to a collective level. And the reason I'm asking is sort of about your participation in the Last Prisoner Project. is kind of, how can we take that concept of Navoya and sort of zoom out a little bit in a way where we're looking at society, looking at our communities, looking at kind of systems in place and asking like what is necessary or like what needs to change in order for, in order to get through this moment, this zeitgeist, this, whatever it is. And so for me, like knowing that you're involved in this kind of work with Last Prisoner.
There was a guy in that men's thing I was talking about. We were talking about community, and he said to me, what are you doing? How are you helping your community? Literally. Well, I don't know. This is years ago. I don't know. I don't know. I'm making them laugh. Taking them out of their minds for a minute, making them feel good. Maybe they go home with their wife or their partner and make love because they both felt good after the entertainment. The endorphins are released. He goes, no, but what are you really doing? I said, I don't know. He goes, Jim, all of us are throwing pebbles into a stagnant lake. The water's flat. And we're all throwing pebbles and trying to make the water move. He goes, because of your status, because you're famous and people know you, you have the ability to take a boulder and throw it into the lake and make bigger waves. You have to do that. That's your obligation. And that's when I really turned. I mean, that's when I started playing at the Veterans Hospital in Los Angeles. At Christmas, we used to feed the veterans in a little lunchroom. We'd all make food and come. And there was four little veterans were up on the stage playing. And I got up and started singing. And everybody had a great time. And then the next year they did it again, but they got more people in the band and more people showed up because that was coming. And then the next year they actually expanded the whole thing and got a little stage. Now we're talking, this went over 20 years, Christmas time, to the point where we built up 5,000 people showing up from all the veterans hospitals and buses, feeding them. The mayor would come, other actors would come, and we would entertain and feed the men. And that's really where my heart has always been, is with the veterans. And now with this Last Prisoners project, it's like I'm on the board. I am trying to throw a boulder to make awareness, to get these guys, girls out.
Could you, for people who aren't familiar with the Last Prisoners Project, could you just kind of give the spiel, like the elevator pitch as to what it's doing?
We've raised money and we pay lawyers. A lot of lawyers doing pro bono work to write letters and write appeals to every state to release cannabis, nonviolent cannabis criminals. They weren't criminals, but they're labeled criminals, out of prison. It's time. It's time to, by the way, most of these guys are gentle creatures thrown into a prison, which, by the way, that it collapsed. Look, the number one fear in life is death. The number two fear in life is the collapse of family. That is the trauma, whether it's divorce, whether there's severe illness in the family, whether somebody in your family dies, like my brother. Those are traumas, and those break families apart. When they arrest these guys for, 28 grams of marijuana and throw them in jail, they've collapsed that guy's family. For what? No, come on. It's like even in Oregon and Denver and Oklahoma, Oakland, they've decriminalized, psilocybin and mushrooms. And it's like, don't arrest the guys that have on the street that just shot up. These poor creatures need love and help. Arrest the dealer.
Right.
Right? That's sending these terrible drugs into these people. But mescaline, come on now. We know now mescaline can help with severe depression. Mescaline can really help rewire the mind. We know. Don't arrest these people. Let them go on their journey. Now, you get arrested for selling it, but you shouldn't be selling mushrooms anyway. You should be giving them away. They grow right here, But anyway, so see, there is movement, and there is movement in the Last Prisoners Project. We've been releasing, lots of people are being released. Even the state of Louisiana is starting to loosen up. We're making progress, and the way to make progress is write letters to the state's attorney's offices in every state and tell them, let these people out. And if you are in a state where you can write and willing to write a letter, let the Last Prisoners Project know, because they'll have names of people in that state that you can put in your letter. So yeah, letters really make a difference. Calls, emails make a difference. Any small donation to help with the administration of all this stuff. We had a great benefit at the MJ Unpacked with the Blues Brothers, where we raised, I think they ended up $120,000 for the Last Prisoners Project. But we brought a lot of press to it, and there's a lot of articles on it. There's video on us performing. Steve D'Angelo spoke, and so they have media clips that they can use. So it's just bringing awareness to people. And it's just time to let these families come back together and heal.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's sort of like when people talk about like what cannabis can do for them. And so many people relax with cannabis or kind of tune into.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think about and I say this to people in the industry, and most of the people in the industry are on board with Last Prisoners Project, absolutely. But these men and women that are in jail, these were the pioneers of our industry today. They took the arrows, and we are benefiting from it. I mean, I'm not benefiting from it. I break even here, maybe financially, but we have the benefit to move freely with a car full of cannabis to drive the dispensaries. There are companies making, lots of money because of this industry, and these people are the ones that's made the sacrifice. So the first thing we got to do is get them out. Second thing we got to do is put them in our industry, because it's hard to get a job when you're an ex-con. And it's hard to work with cannabis when you have a police record. So, there's things to work out.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. That's kind of what I was getting at, is like, it's not enough to just, it's not enough to just kind of be here now, be relaxing in your own space. I think like part of being aware of waking up is waking up to the entire situation, the entire climate of it. And like part of the consciousness of cannabis currently, I think, includes or could include or should include, expanding our own personal consciousness while we're under the influence of it to really think more collectively. And, like of all the people and the ways that this plant is like touching society, touching culture, touching individuals, kind of putting that all together. So, I often, kind of wrap up these podcasts with this call to action of, and again, we just talked about it with the Last Prisoner Project, but really like I say, like, it's never just enough to just, feel good on our own or be present on our own or whatever, but really to then apply that kind of heightened, more tuned in awareness to like actually taking action in the world. And so I just want to say thank you for the work that you're doing.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So is there anything else that I didn't ask you that you want to talk about or add, or just any or all of the above, really?
Look at next week, January 19th, the second season of Growing Belushi is premiering on Discovery. For all you that are listening, please watch that night. We need the numbers. It was very hard to get a cannabis show on the airwaves because most of them are so frightened about the FCC, and Discovery really took a leap of faith with me. And so did Michael Rapino at Live Nation, who financed it. Brilliant, brilliant man, Michael Rapino. There's an old saying, when you drink the water, remember the men or women who dug the well. Mm-hmm. Michael Rapino dug the well for me in this show, Growing Belushi. So it's a perfect blend of education, comedy, and introspection. You know what I mean? So I call it edutainment. It's funny. Danny's in it. Danny Aykroyd, Guy Fieri comes and cooks some infused food. My kids are in it. They're like Succession. They're like fighting over who's going to get the farm. It's very funny. Chris is in it. My cousin, who was very funny in the first season. Very funny. And we were lucky to do very well in the first season. We got the second season. And it's for us. It's for us, and it's also for the new consumer who is curious but frightened. So I'm trying to bring confidence to cannabis in this show. So people will go to a dispensary and discuss their needs medically, So anyway, if anything, please watch on Discovery Wednesday, January 19th.
Thank you. And how can people sort of follow along with what's going on the farm, or, just like with news, what you're up to, or, just.
Well, yeah, I have an Instagram,
yeah.
Jim Belushi, and then Belushi's Farm Instagram. And I don't know, there's Twitter, and I'm on TikTok once in a while. I don't really know what I'm doing there, but, Facebook and, there's a website, belushisfarm.com if you want to follow anything at all. But thank you for that.
Yeah.
For that shameless plug. But, let's plug it, baby. Let's plug it.
That's what it's for. So
yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Are we at 50 minutes?
We are. Yeah, we are. Oh my gosh, exactly at 50 minutes. Yeah.
I got to go to the bathroom.
All right. All right. Talk to you soon.
What a joy. I hope to meet you one day. You're lovely to talk to.
Likewise. All right. I'll let you know when more again. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Bye.